Good morning and welcome to the Justice Center Summit, the session on the Individual and Family Support Services Unit. Welcome. Before we begin, we'd like to do some housekeeping with you. First, I want to say that this session is being recorded and the PowerPoint slides will be sent to you after the session later this week, and it will also be available on the Justice Center website, so you don't need to worry if you miss any part today. It'll be here. So on the Zoom housekeeping, if you're new to Zoom or don't usually use it, if you go down to the bottom of your screen and hold your cursor over it, you'll see some of the different functions that are available to you in Zoom. First and foremost is the chat. We encourage you to open it up because as I speak right now, there's a lot of helpful information being posted in there from WRI, who is helping us host these sessions. And we're also going to use the chat for questions. As webinar participants, you all are off camera and muted, but if you have questions that come up in your mind during this session, please type them into the chat and we will take breaks and ask those questions as we go along. Closed captioning is available if you would like that, and you just need to click on the closed caption option. And in this session, we encourage you to use the reactions button. If there's something that you really like, show us your love. If there's something, you're surprised about, that's fine. Just help us be more interactive today. So again, the session is being recorded. The PowerPoint will be available. And I am going to turn things over to the capable hands of Catherine Lewis, an advocate with our Individual and Family Support Unit, to begin the presentation.
Good morning. Thank you, Devin. Again, thank you all for being here today. We greatly appreciate it. Again, my name is Catherine Lewis. I am one of the Region 3 advocates, and I work out of the Rochester office. I've been with the New York State Justice Center for the past 2 years. Prior to coming to the Justice Center, I was with OCFS, the Office of Children and Family Services, where I worked with juveniles who had mental health and substance abuse disorder. I've also worked with the local district attorney's office working with victims of domestic violence. Here with me today is my colleague and co-presenter, Courtney Fidel, and our Deputy Director, Devin Robinson, will be operating our chat box. Courtney?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Catherine. So my name's Courtney Friedel. I've been with the Justice Center since of May of 2022 in Region 5 in our Pearl River office. Prior to being here, I've served vulnerable populations through case management and advocacy, most recently working with survivors of sexual violence, helping them navigate the criminal justice process and starting their healing.
Today, we'll be spending some time telling you about the New York State Justice Center, along with providing an overview of our Individual and Family Support Unit and the ways in which we provide support and services to individuals receiving services and their families. Throughout the presentation, you may hear us refer to the Individual and Family Support Unit as IFSU. IFSU is our acronym. And again, we will provide and share helpful resources and links with all of you. We'll also be discussing the importance of self-care, and we'll be able to answer some questions from the audience.
Perfect. So hopefully many of you have been able to attend some of the other sessions that the summit was able to offer, where you might have been able to receive Justice Center updates and an overview of the Justice Center investigations. If you haven't, don't worry, as mentioned before, all the sessions are being recorded so you can review them at a different time. But we're going to start today by providing a brief overview of the Justice Center for the Protection of People with Special Needs, which was established in 2013 by the Protection of People with Special Needs Act. The agency was created to restore public trust in the institutions by caring for vulnerable populations, by protecting the health, safety, and dignity of all people with special needs. Prior to the establishment of the agency, there was no consistent way to prevent staff who committed serious acts of abuse from getting another job working with people with special needs. Additionally, there was inconsistent laws, rules, regulations, requirements, and standards across the service systems, which presented challenges to providing the best care to stakeholders. The Justice Center's goals focus on preventing mistreatment of people with special needs and ensuring that all allegations of abuse and neglect are fully investigated. The Justice Center investigates, reviews, and makes final determination of all allegations of abuse and neglect made by staff members. So this could include employees, volunteers, interns, consults, or contractors against the individuals who are receiving services. I also just want to note that the Justice Center does not interrogate, arrest individuals receiving services. We only specifically look at allegations from staff members. So the vision of the Justice Center is people with special needs shall be protected from abuse, neglect, and mistreatment. This will be accomplished by assuring that the state maintains the nation's highest standards of health, safety, and dignity by supporting the dedicated people who provide services.
Okay, so the Justice Center has jurisdiction over more than 1 million individuals receiving service across 6 state agencies. Our jurisdiction includes all programs operated, licensed, and certified by these state agencies. The Office of People with Developmental Disability includes developmental centers, day habilitations, and Article 16 clinics. The Office of Mental Health will include inpatient hospital psychiatric unit, community residence, and treatment programs. The Office of Addiction Services and Support will include addiction treatment centers, community residential service, and methadone treatment programs. The Office of Children and Family Service will include all state-operated juvenile facilities, licensed residential programs, which includes residential secure, limited secure, non-secure facilities for court-placed youths. Under the two next state agencies, the Department of Health and State Education, we have less programs under our jurisdiction. The Department of Health will include overnight, summer day, and travel and day camp for children with developmental disabilities. And these programs have to obtain permits through the Department of Health. We also have a small number of licensed adult homes throughout New York State, serving people who are diagnosed with mental illness. And finally, the State Education Department will include the New York State School for Blind, the New York State School for the Deaf, and out-of-state school serving New York State residents. Please note, we do not have jurisdiction over public schools. So from the list, you can see that our jurisdiction is quite extensive.
So some of you might be familiar with the Vulnerable Persons Central Register, which is also referred to as the VPCR, and it's our agency's toll-free hotline. It operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for receiving reports of allegations of abuse and neglect. Allegations of abuse and neglect can be made by anyone, so this is including parents, guardians, advocates, and we really encourage anyone to make a report to the VPCR hotline when they have knowledge or reason to believe that an individual with special needs has been abused, neglected, or mistreated. Okay, so as mentioned before, the Justice Center, we investigate, review, and make final determination in cases of alleged abuse or neglect committed by a staff member. So here is a general overview of what that case life cycle might look like. So it starts by a report being made into the Justice Center through that VPCR that was just on that last slide. Then it moves to intake where all the information is collected and an incident number is assigned. The allegation is then classified. An allegation can be classified as abuse and neglect, a significant incident, or a non-JC case. After that, every allegation of abuse and neglect then launches an investigation. During an investigation, as much information is collected to really paint that full picture of what happened during the incident. Then a final determination is made. A case can either be substantiated, which means that there is enough evidence to prove that abuse or neglect has happened, or unsubstantiated. And then also a subject has 30 days to appeal a substantiated case.
We also want to highlight that the Justice Center has an advisory council that advises and assists us in developing policies, proposed regulations, and plans and programs to carry out the Justice Center function, powers, and duties. 9 of the 16 members on the council are people who are receiving services or have in the past, and or their family members of those receiving services. So their perspective and feedback are especially helpful and important when we're carrying out our mission.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit now, and we're going to discuss the overview of the Individual and Family Support Unit, which is the unit that both Catherine and I work under as advocates with the Justice Center. So the Individual and Family Support Unit, also known as IFSU, was created in October of 2013 with the goal of providing supports to individuals and family members as they navigate the Justice Center process. So this map displays the Justice Center's 5 regions, and each star represents where our staff are located. We currently have 3 supervisors based out of the regions that oversee the unit, along with a unit director, and I'll go over each one of those locations. So the first one in our main office location is Delmar in Region 1, where we have several advocates, along with a regional supervisor and a unit director. In Unit 2, we have an advocate in the Utica and Binghamton office and a regional supervisor in the Syracuse office. We also have an ombudsman located in our Utica office, and she's an ombudsman for the Sunmount and Valley Ridge DDSO. In Region 3, we have an advocate in the Rochester and West Seneca office. Region 4, we have an advocate in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Plainview office. And then in Region 5, we have an advocate in the Poughkeepsie and Rockland office, along with a regional supervisor in White Plains. So I also just wanted to add that even if there isn't an advocate located in your office or in the county where you're located, that does not mean you don't receive our services. We cover all of New York State and have no problem traveling. So for example, I work out of the Rockland office, but I can cover Orange County, Sullivan, Westchester County. And then also to add to that, our unit does operate under regular business hours, but we can accommodate to people's schedule. So if you work late, we will make sure that we can accommodate to your schedule so we can make contact. In terms of backgrounds, all the advocates come from a variety of educational backgrounds and professional experiences. Some examples would be family court, mental health court, advocacy centers, domestic violence shelters, rape crisis programs, and direct services within the provider programs and case management. So the Justice Center provides guidance and support to victims of abuse or neglect, their families, personal reps, and guardians throughout the course of an investigation. So nearly 19,000 individuals and family members have been contacted advocates for assistance since 2013. And we also just wanted to share some more updated data from our unit. So in 2022, 3,303 individuals and family members were provided with advocacy support. This could be an advocate providing information about reporting, the investigation process, case status updates, or records access. Also in 2022, the Justice Center provided assistance to individuals and families regarding records access 779 times. So this could be providing information about Jonathan's Law and how to request the investigation records. Also, advocates provide victim and witness accompaniment in Justice Center-led investigations on more than 500 occasions. This is accompanying the individual receiving services to an interview, discussing what to expect, providing support throughout that interview, and also just being there to answer any questions that they might have. The Justice Center also attends conferences and informational events, kind of like this one today, offering materials and answering questions about the agency. So advocates have presented or participated in 27 events in 2022.
Okay, so we'd like to get a sense of how many individuals in the audience have ever interacted with the individual and family support unit. So just take a moment to complete the poll. Thank you. So it looks like, thank you so much for your feedback. It looks like a few of you had contact with us. Thank you. And a large percentage have not. And this is why we have these continuous presentation, because we want to make the public aware of what we do, and the services that we can provide individuals receiving services and or their family members. We've also like to address any questions or concerns that individuals have when they contact our department, and to make the appropriate referrals if we're not able to address their concerns. So thank you so much for your feedback.
I have a couple questions, if I could just
Go ahead.
actually, yeah. So the first one is, what's the time frame for classification of an incident that's reported to the Justice Center from, when the call is made? How long does it take for the Justice Center to make a classification?
So we have a department by the name of 3 business day review, and it's normally 3 days. But it can go outside of that preview. But I can get more details for you. And
actually, thank you, Catherine. We try and do it as soon as we can. Sometimes we have multiple reports. We try and, make it within a couple hours. But sometimes, as Catherine said, we have very complicated cases, or maybe it's somebody that we're not, or a report that we're not sure of how serious it was. So we will put those into the 3 business day review, and sometimes we'll ask the provider agencies for some additional information, because it's very important that we classify incidents as, if they're classified as abuse and neglect, then an investigation starts. And so we want to make sure, and that takes time, and creates some things that provider agencies have to deal with. So we want to be as sure as we can before we start to do that. So it can be within hours or up to 3 business days. And there's another question, do we provide service for people who live in their own house with their family? As it was said at the beginning, we have jurisdiction only over programs that are operated or licensed by the state agencies that were listed previously, by the 5 state agencies. So someone living in their own home with their family, if they're not receiving any licensed or state operated services, we do not have any jurisdiction. Those are the only questions. Sorry for jumping in. Go on.
Thank you. So how do our advocates in the Individual and Family Support Unit assist individuals and their family? A big part of our role is to work with individuals receiving services and their family, to guide them through the Justice Center process, such as reporting, interviewing, final determination, and general inquiries. We provide support during Justice Center-led interviews. We provide emotional support before, during, and after these interviews. We often speak with the individual in order to check in on their emotional state, provide reassurance, validations, and ask if they need to take a break. This is especially important given the information that the individuals share with us during these interviews. So we definitely want to make sure that they are as comfortable as possible. Another important role relates to providing case updates. As advocates, we often make contact with individuals and or their family members via the phone to provide an overview of the New York State Justice Center process and to explain the case status. We do so without going into details. It's often helpful when we're able to let someone know if the case is still active, or if they should be expecting a letter of determination in the mail. Another way we provide information is by sharing relevant Justice Center resources, which we will be discussing in details later on in the presentation. We also recommend that you check out the New York State Justice Center website for lots of information and downloadable resources. We also want to note that as advocates, we provide support throughout the cycle of the case, and in some cases, provide ongoing support well beyond the conclusion of the case. I have had cases where I've worked with family members or service recipient after the case have concluded, making referrals, connecting them to outside resources that can be beneficial to them. Okay. In addition to everything we shared around what we can do, we also wanted to address a few examples of what is outside of our abilities. This chart will show some of those examples. Making referrals and provide contact information for state agencies and providers. We often connect family members with a point of contact and refer them to helpful resources. During our initial call with an individual receiving service and or their personal representative, legal guardian, we provide explanation of the Justice Center process. It's important to note that the process may be more extensive in order to ensure that the investigation is thorough and the important evidence is obtained. We know that the process can be challenging, and we are there to support the individual and or their family member throughout the entire process. We can provide you with a status update. For example, letting you know if the case is still active or if the case is closed. We can explain the contents of the letter of determination. While we are not able to provide you with a recording of the report that was made to the hotline or details about the investigation, just because we don't want to compromise the integrity of the case, we can provide record access information and how to go about requesting more information. We frequently connect our state agencies and provider contacts on your behalf. So we'll reach out to the agency or the state agency and obtain an appropriate contact that you can address your concerns.
So we also wanted to spend some time talking about the approaches that we take to collaborate both internally and externally. So one way we do this is by utilizing a multidisciplinary approach, which has been especially effective in carrying out victim-centered and trauma-informed practices that we practice and promote at the Justice Center. So one example of utilizing this approach has been demonstrated by our agency's utilization of the Justice Center Sexual Abuse Response Team. So this team is made up of staff with diverse backgrounds, including nurses, attorneys, advocates, and investigators. In these meetings, an investigator connects with an advocate at the very start of the case, and this allows the investigator and the advocate to discuss a plan of action and relevant details to the case. We find that having an advocate involved early on helps build rapport and trust with both the individual receiving services and the family member. The advocate's there to offer assistance in regards to scheduling interviews and oftentimes makes that initial contact with the individual and family. In the course of their discussions with individuals receiving services or their families, advocates may be aware of additional information that may benefit the investigator. So this could include placement changes, updated medical information, or the best method of communication. Having an advocate speak with an individual and letting them know that they're there to provide support and to address any hesitations or concerns can be providing a lot more comfort. So for example, I feel like it's sometimes those little efforts that you were there supporting an individual. I had someone who was really hesitant about the interview process, had past experiences with trauma, and just, was nervous. And being able to have those conversations ahead of time so they know what to expect during the interview. We made a plan to meet outside in the parking lot. So they had a couple minutes to meet with me face to face and discuss any of their concerns, and also have someone to walk in with. Having them pick where they're going to sit or the location of the interview so they feel most comfortable, most home. Letting them know that they can take breaks during the interview. They need to get a drink of water or fresh air. And I find that those little things make the experience as a whole a lot more comfortable for the individual. So also, as part of the multidisciplinary approach, as we just discussed, we participate in several other internal specialized teams. So these include the mortality case coordination, where we work closely with investigators on cases involving death of an individual receiving services, and ensure that we're providing support to their families. We also have the sexual abuse response team, which I just went over in the last slide. We are active participants in the abuse prevention workshops, which are led by the Prevention and Quality Improvement Unit, and participate along with members of other state agencies in identifying the best practices around abuse prevention. And then we also participate in the medical review board meetings, which are a voluntary team of medical professionals who weigh in on cases that require medical expertise.
Courtney, there's been just a couple questions that, so are the services that you've talked about, all the great services, are they only available for Justice Center-led investigations?
So in terms of accompaniments to interviews, they're only for justice-led investigations, but for everything else, providing support, guidance, explaining the process, we can cover that to anyone that falls under that Justice Center jurisdiction. And also to add, even if you don't fall under that jurisdiction, we can provide resources or referrals to families or individuals who are looking for it and helping them, kind of find someone who can help them, even if they do not fall within our jurisdiction.
Okay. Then there was a question. We have someone who's from a hospital setting, I think, and, noted that for especially adults, to communicate with families, the hospitals have to have the consent of the person receiving services. Can families, when they contact the Justice Center, do they have to have, consent to contact us? Do we have limitations on what we can share to family members based on their status?
Yeah, absolutely. So when our first conversation with a family member, we are asking what their relationship is with the individual, if they're their legal guardian, their personal rep. We don't have them sign a consent form, but we cannot give any type of information during an active case, details about the case. We don't want anything to interfere, but basic information and status updates, also referrals to services we can always offer.
Right, thank you. Yep, we can help people understand what we can and cannot provide based on their status. And then I'll answer this last question, which was, what's the difference between a reporter to the State Central Register of Child Abuse and the mandated reporter for the Justice Center? It's just simply that there are two different laws that talk about who a mandated reporter is. So there are several types of professionals that are mandated reporters to report child abuse, teachers, social workers, police, doctors, nurses, and those are for familial child abuse cases or cases that occur in settings outside of the Justice Center's jurisdiction. As we said before, we are location-based with our jurisdiction, so a mandated reporter reporting abuse to us would be, for those programs that are licensed or operated by those state agencies. But it's okay if you don't know. If you are concerned that somebody has been abused, you can call us. And if it's supposed to go to the State Central Register of Child Abuse, we'll send it right over there. And if it's supposed to stay in the Central Register of Child Abuse, we'll do the same thing for us too. So if you see something, say something, and it'll get to the right place.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. So we also want to mention that we participate in external stakeholder meetings, such as the regional coalition meeting with other victim assistance providers, at the Trauma Champions Collaboration, where we work with other state agencies on implementing trauma-informed practices, the Crime Victims Assistance Task Force, where we participate in annual events to acknowledge victims of a crime and their families, and at the New York State Council of Children and Families cross-systems meetings, where we collaborate with family and youth groups and state agencies, focus on achieving better outcomes for children, youth, and families by improving access to services and supports, and also collaborating with the limited service barriers between systems. And just to add, really, our big goal when collaborating with these external stakeholders is building those connections, learning what services are out there in our community, because a big part of an advocate's role is to be able to refer to resources and services. So being able to present with a warm handoff when an individual is looking for a service is really a main goal of ours, and making sure that we can guarantee that they are going somewhere that's going to be able to be beneficial and helpful to them.
So before we move on, we want to tell you about some areas of the agency. We wanted to give you a brief overview of our process when it comes to how we respond to inquiries. Our process starts with a referral being received by our team. The bulk of our referrals come from our call center, information line, and investigation unit, which typically occurs after an individual or their family member calls into the Justice Center looking for additional information or support. Once we process the referral, it's assigned to an advocate. We consider the location of the referral. If it's an active Justice Center-led case, where most likely an advocate is going to participate in a victim interview, we want to make sure that we assign it to a local advocate. Other factors that we do consider is previous contact. So if the individual receiving services or family member had communication with a particular advocate in the past, that call would most likely be assigned to that same advocate. At this point, the advocate will then reach out and make contact with the caller within 1 to 3 business days. If it's a more urgent matter, the call will be made earlier. We can provide direct contact information for future contracts, so there's a direct way to reach us. I recently received an email from a legal guardian who I've had contact with in 2021. That person was just looking for record access and had some questions or concerns that was geared towards the agency. So I was able to connect with the agency, get her a point contact person, and have them follow up with her while providing her and guidance with regards to requesting the investigative report through record access. So we do provide ongoing support as needed, and we make the appropriate referrals depending on their need. Okay. So earlier in the presentation, Courtney pointed out our ombudsman on the map. We wanted to take a few moments to tell you about this unique role. The ombudsman is based out of our Utica office and regularly travels to the 2 remaining OPWDD developmental centers in New York. One of their functions is the ombudsman function is to ensure that individuals receiving services at the Summermount and Valley Ridge developmental centers are able to express their concerns and questions and have them heard. The ombudsman provides assistance and support by helping to guide individuals as they work towards remedying their specific conflicts. The ombudsman ensures that individual rights are being exercised and protected. Ultimately, the ombudsman is a frontline advocate who supports the individual in expressing their concerns so that their needs are being heard, their rights are being acknowledged, and the identified problems are being resolved within these 2 locations. The ombudsman helps to identify any systematic trends or issues that may be present and work towards advocating for change. The ombudsman strongly encourages and promotes self-advocacy and self-determination. She helps to educate individuals about their rights, good care practices, and other related topics to better enable them to become, to work towards being more healthy and make informed choices.
Catherine, I have just another question about, who can access all of the individual and family support units, great services. So if a provider agency is leading the investigation, can they refer a family member or an individual to the Justice Center for to have questions answered and our services?
So yes, if the investigation is delegated to the state agency, we can support the family members throughout the investigation also. We can provide them with guidance and record access, and we can connect them to someone at the agency that can assist them with the investigation also. So yes, we do work with these individuals also.
Yeah, we completely encourage you. This is a resource for provider agencies. If you have people who have questions about Justice Center processes, Courtney and Catherine and their colleagues are experts about those. So please do refer.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
And we will be talking about them in more details coming up in the presentation. So resources for individuals and family, like we were just saying, we have a variety of resources that can be really helpful in explaining our roles and the services that we provide. All of these resources can be found on our website, and most are also in print. Today, we're going to be focusing on the ones that we regularly utilize and that individuals and families find the most helpful. We will also be sharing the links in the chat box, so you can just click the link and it'll take you straight to the resource. Okay. So on our website, you can find our disability resource page. It is user-friendly, and the page provides a lot of information on programs, service, laws, and regulation. It also includes categories like transportation, healthcare, housing, and information about technology-related assistance for individuals with disability. Again, it is user-friendly, and you can navigate throughout the website. We're going to be sharing a link in the chat box. On our website is our resource card. It is a pocket-sized card, features information on the unit, reporting to the hotline, and most importantly, features contact information for each of the 6 state agencies that falls under the Justice Center jurisdiction. Another great feature of this card is that it is perforated. On one side, it can be provided to individuals or to families, and on the other side, it can be provided to the mandated reporter, and it has relevant information on each. So again, we're going to be including that link in the chat box. Next is our guidance for individuals and family. This is the most comprehensive guidance document brochure of our brochures, and it explains the general process of the agency, along with showing a lot of the most frequently asked questions that we get. One part I'd like to point out is that it has the process chart that explains the case process. And we discussed that earlier in the presentation, from it being reported to the Justice Center to the final determination and appeal process. And finally, I'd like to share our Jonathan Law Incident Notification and Record Access brochure. This brochure provides information and guidance on record access and how to obtain more information from the providers directly. Keep in mind that Jonathan Law only applies to the Office of People with Developmental Disability, the Office of Mental Health, and the Office of Addiction Services and Support. However, we can assist you and provide record access guidance for the other 3 state agencies that falls under our jurisdiction. And again, we will be sharing a link in the chat box. So, we have a great video series which provides a lot of good information and explains our mission, prevention resources, and the importance of reporting abuse and neglect that is available on our site.
So we also wanted to share with you in which some ways the Justice Center has both established layers of safeguards as well as produced materials meant to help providers protect vulnerable individuals from abuse and neglect. So one of these is the Code of Conduct, which establishes a uniform set of ethical standards for the treatment of people with special needs. It's also important to note that the Code of Conduct must be signed by all staff who have regular contact with individuals receiving services when they are hired on, and reviewed annually as well. So this information is contained in the Justice Center Spotlight on Prevention Toolkit. It's offered as a resource for provider agencies, staff members, along with family members and individuals. These resources were developed as a result of trends that we identified while reviewing extensive data related to our cases. And these toolkits range from dangers of being left unattended in vehicles to maintaining professional boundaries. They include sample policies, fact sheets, case studies. So we really strongly encourage everyone to kind of review all of them and share with others. So this is a resource, and I believe they might have spoke a little bit at the summit. So it is a great resource, the technology-related assistance for individuals with disabilities, known as TRADE. This program provides access to assistive technology to any New Yorker with a disability through regional trade centers. Regional trade centers provide device loans and hands-on training with people with disabilities. And you can find those locations of the regional trade centers on our site as well. Then we have the New York State Trauma Informed Network. This resource provides you with great information about trauma response practices, and it allows you to network with other organizations within New York State. It allows you to search resources, post resources, and also find events that promote trauma and responsive practices.
I have one question before we go into the break. Are family members notified if the staff person who may have been substantiated for an allegation of abuse and neglect, and if that staff person appeals that decision going through the Justice Center's appeal process, are families notified about the results of that?
Yes to both. So we have something, it's called a letter of determination that gets sent out to the family members, notifying them of the results of the case and if a subject is appealing the findings.
Great, thank you. Hi everyone, welcome back from break. Before we get into self-care, which is going to be the highlight of this presentation, there was one question about whether if a provider agency conducts their own investigation, is the provider agency responsible for sending out the letter of determination? And they are not. The Justice Center makes the final determination on all allegations of abuse and neglect. If a provider agency does the investigation, the Justice Center reviews it and makes a determination if it should be substantiated or not and what category it is. So the only letters that come out at the end are from the Justice Center. And that's the only question we've received during the break. Catherine, I hope you're able to see your slides now and take it away.
Thank you. Okay. So we want to take a moment to recognize that navigating the system may be an added stressor for someone who's receiving services, as well as for family members and providers and agency staff. We recognize that these last few years have been especially challenging and wanted to take a moment to remind you all about the importance of self-care. We provided you with a self-care assessment and plan of tool that you can utilize for your own self-care. The plan is something that requires self-care reflection and is unique to you and you only. So what is self-care and what do we really mean when we talk about self-care? We're going to take a few moments and ask that everyone in the audience just give an example.
By putting it into the chat.
In the chat box.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then I will read them for you for your listening pleasure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Going for a walk. Yoga, walks, it's my kind of thing. Getting fresh air, taking a nap, getting sleep, music, exercise, crocheting, kayaking and camping, walking my dogs, reading, maintaining healthy boundaries, going to the gym, meditation, ice cream, always a favorite, taking care of yourself. Well, yep, kid-free days, doing a puzzle.
Thank you for those great examples. When I think of self-care, I think of the practice of taking action to preserve or improve my own health. We want to let you guys know that self-care does not have to require a lot of time. Strategies that take minimal time can make a big difference in your mood and well-being. Eating healthy, like was stated, drinking water, doing something that makes you happy, mindfulness. So those are great examples. Okay. For the purpose of this time that we have together and to get you started on your self-care plan that we provided, we're going to be focusing on 6 areas of self-care where you can implement activities to get you on your way to wellness. These 6 areas include professional, physical, psychological, emotional, relationship, and spiritual. And in the next few slides, we're going to be asking everyone to participate in the chat box. Thank you.
So the first one that we're going to look at is professional. So I want you to think of some activities that help you work consistently at the professional level expected to you. Please feel free to write them in the chat. So just for example, for me, when I get into work, I always start my day by writing a realistic list of the things I need to get done during that day. And it kind of helps me stay focused throughout the day and also on task. So please feel free to write yours in the chat and then we'll discuss them.
So far we're getting supervision with an exclamation point, staying up to date on trainings, keeping a timeline of the day, checking email, professional development. Scheduling out blocks of time for specific projects. Lots of people like your to-do list, Courtney. Calendar updates. Taking lunch, that's important. Effective communication. Prioritizing by urgency. Talking with coworkers, checking in with the team. A lot of to-do lists. Check email only once an hour. That's a good practice.
Thank you so much for all your responses and some really great ideas. And then just, it's being mindful to take those breaks, logging out of work when it's time to leave or when it's appropriate, to make sure that you are not being burnt out.
Thank you. And another is physical. And example is like activities that help you stay fit and healthy, getting enough energy throughout the workday. I know for me personally, I had a habit of working throughout my lunch, and I would be so overwhelmed, I will be drained at the end of my day going home. And once I started to definitely take time out to have my lunch, take a walk around the office, or even just sit meditating, doing nothing, that had such a really big impact on how I felt at the end of the day. And little things like these really help your well-being. So if you can just utilize the chat and put some examples, that would be greatly appreciated.
Use sit to stand monitor during the day. Sitting is the new smoking. Another person who walks during lunch, bar, yoga, spin, walks in the beautiful weather, walking, stretch routine at their desk. Lots of stretching. Cutting down on sugar to prevent an afternoon crash, good idea. Taking the long way to the bathroom. Music at lunch. Stepping away from the desk.
These are some great examples.
Work outside when I can.
Yeah.
Teaching hobbies to each other, I like that. Shut the monitor off.
I like taking the long way to the bathroom. I'm gonna try that.
Yeah. Get those steps in.
Yes.
So the next one we're going to look at is psychological self-care, which are activities that help you feel clear-headed and able to intellectually engage with the professional challenges that are found in your work, school, or personal life. So for example, spending some more time with your pets. I have 2 dogs, but after watching the timer video, I want 5 more. So that was super helpful. So please feel free to write in the, chat some of your ideas of what that might look like.
Taking brain breaks, being part of a book club, counting to 20 and then back down to 1, sitting in the quiet, calling loved ones, small dance party, I want to work there, reading self-care books, having a mantra in your mind, lots of music, breathing. This is a very good. A lot of people who breathe and meditate. Gardening.
Thank you. And I think really, the main focus of this one is being able to take some time to check in with yourself. And it's so important when you notice, okay, I need a break or I need to take a step away for 10 minutes. And those little things really do matter.
Another one that we're going to look at is emotional. Being aware of and identify with what you're feeling, and then just allowing yourself to lean into those feelings in ways that honor yourself and your emotion. learning to say no, setting boundaries, and protecting your peace at all costs. Those are very important. And when you're able to set boundaries, it makes a big difference. So just put in the chat a few examples, and then Davin would state them out loud.
Going to therapy, taking time for yourself, not being the first to say yes, let somebody else take the lead, leaving work at quitting time, don't hold grudges, leaving work at the office, don't let it follow you home, identify your triggers and understand your own boundaries, talk with coworkers to let go of the work day, spa day and letting things go, exercising once again comes in, give yourself permission to set boundaries, don't put work email on your personal phone, forgiveness, advising your supervisor of your boundaries.
Thank you for those examples. Those are some great examples. And we are going to move on to spiritual.
So spiritual self-care is really focusing on taking care of your soul. So this involves having a sense of perspective beyond the day-to-day to life. So please feel free to write any activities that you do to focus on spiritual self-care. I know mine personally is spending, more time outside, especially after a long day in the office.
We have a lot of yogis in this session, and people who meditate, walks on the beach, praying. Walks on the beach, that's a good one. Breathing exercises, walking to the waterfront, lucky you, listening to music, puzzles, practice thankfulness, journaling. Rule of 2, will it matter in 2 hours, in 2 days, in 2 months, in 2 years? Putting energy where it matters.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Set my phone alarm to meditate 10 minutes a day. Yeah, the rule of 2 is getting a lot of love in the chat. So, understanding the power of the pause.
Great. Thank you everyone so much for participating.
And the last one we have is relationship. This is about maintaining healthy, supportive relationships and also ensuring that you have diversity in your relationships. So you have different perspective, maintaining and prioritizing important relationships. And this is just making time for the individuals in your life that is most important. That could be family, close friends, colleagues. So we just want to make sure that you're surrounded by a great circle and you have that support. So we just want to say thank you all for your participation in these 6 areas.
And so we kind of just wanted to show that when you put all those pieces together, you have a good self-care routine. Identifying activities in each of these should make for a healthier you and someone who invests within themselves. So the self-care plan that we provided walks you through the areas that we discussed today and also provides you with the opportunity to identify coping strategies, both positive or strategies that you might want to improve on. And really, as we mentioned, trying to take time for yourself. Self-care, sometimes it can seem intimidating or I don't have time to do that, but it can be simple as a 10-minute walk in the morning. I know for me, I kind of have a rule that I do not look at my phone when I wake up in the morning. I want to get ready for work. I want to focus on what I have to do and not checking emails ahead of time or already getting myself stressed out. And eventually adding these self-care activities into your day-to-day, it then just becomes a natural routine and really prevents from burnout, which is such a big, part in this field. And then this is a quote by Katie Reed. It says, self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. And we just kind of felt like it was a perfect way to wrap up this activity and showing that investing in yourself and taking care of yourself is really then presenting the best of you to everyone else and being able to do our jobs to the fullest and helping the people that we care for.
As we mentioned before, we are available to provide support and information. You can email us at supportcoordinator@justicecenter.ny.gov, or you can call the 1-800 number listed and ask to be connected with an individual and family support unit. They will take a message with detailed information and send a referral to IFSU. As a reminder, we respond to the majority of referrals within 1 to 3 business days, and we will be providing our contact information in the chat box. We're going to use the rest of the time here today to answer some questions. Please feel free to include your contact information along with your questions in the chat box, and we will get in touch with you in the coming days. If we do not get to your question today, as a reminder to everyone, participants will get a copy of this presentation and relevant information and resources in the coming days. We will also be opening a survey shortly, and we will really value your feedback. Again, thank you all for being present, and we'll take some questions now.
How do I refer someone for this service? And they apologize if it was asked before. We understand you guys are in human services. You might have joined late. So can you just talk about how, give anybody our number. If you're a provider agency, you can give people our any of those great handouts that Catherine and Courtney went over. You can give them our number and have them call us at any point in time. And a lot of thank yous are coming through the chat, but not too many questions. So we'll give you some time back in your day. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to, about the individual and family support unit, please refer people to them. Feel free to contact us and let us know if you have any other questions or need some materials. Have a great day, everyone, and thanks for the work that you all do.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Have a good day.